Hey everyone, it's Amber from The Sensible Mama. It is 5 Ways Wednesday, and today I'm going to do one that's a little bit different than my usual style for 5 Ways Wednesday. Usually in this segment, I show you 5 ways to pack a diaper bag or 5 cool ways to use something that you've got in your baby gear stash. But today I wanted to make this focus on mental health. Usually this is what my Friday segment tends to be about, but it just kind of worked out nicely where I've got 5 things that I want to talk about today. And since we're all kind of heading into the new year, into 2022, potentially looking at ourselves and the ways that we've been doing our lives over the last few years, maybe it would be a good time to talk about the 5 things that I am taking with me into 2022. If you guys have been following me on my other social media accounts like TikTok and Instagram, you've probably seen me talk a little bit about the big life changes that I have been going through. For those of you who don't follow me on those other accounts and who are seeing me here for the first time in a new place and wondering what's going on, I've been pretty transparent about my life over the last several years here on YouTube. And one of the things that I haven't been super transparent about has been trouble in my marriage. And it's one of those things that it's something that I'm not fully ready to talk about. But what I want to make really clear is there's been no abuse, there's been no disloyalty, there's been no neglect. My children have been safe and cared for, as have I, as have Charlie. So I don't want anyone thinking that because I'm being silent about the details of my trouble in my marriage, that means that there was something extreme going on. It's just been mostly a lot of trauma for 2 adults who have been through trauma and now are trying to engage in a relationship together, and finding that they're not doing such a great job doing that together and needing to separate in order to heal. And that's what we have decided to do. I am in an apartment right now, and we split the kids 50-50 for right now while we do this separation, and that's where we're at. And that's really all I want to say about it in terms of the details of the split. But it's important to me that you guys understand that there's not been anything that caused me or my husband or my children any kind of danger. Sometimes people just need to separate in order to heal. With that being said, I am on a mental health journey because it is hard to be in relationship with any people in your life when you are not healthy and balanced and whole. And so my whole focus in 2022 is working on healing myself and becoming the best possible version of myself that I can be, because I deserve it and my kids deserve it. And I have a feeling that if you're watching this channel and you've been following along with me, you're interested in self-growth too. So today I'm going to share with you 5 things that I'm taking with me into 2022 that I think are going to help me be a better, more whole, more complete and happy person. So with that said, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor, which is my business, thesensiblemama.com, and then we'll get right into it.
The Sensible Mama is an online baby boutique for babies, toddlers, big kids, and moms. Our warehouse is located in Atlanta, Georgia, and we are mama-owned and mama-operated. Our website, thesensiblemama.com, is a place where you can find all of the best-known names in the industry researched by us. We are also the home of Limea brand, which is a high-end line of diaper bags, sunglasses, and accessories designed by me with busy moms on the go in mind. While you're there, make sure you sign up for our Sensible Reward program or apply for the affiliate program to start earning money either through cash back in the store or directly deposited to your bank account. Lastly, make sure you're following The Sensible Mama on Instagram to be ahead of the game for all store news and product launches. And with that said, let's get right back into today's content.
Okay, the first thing that I'm taking with me into 2022 is consistent therapy. And I want to go ahead and throw it out there that I know that therapy is not accessible to everyone, and that's a big problem here in the United States. I wish that it was something that was free and readily available to everyone, and I hate it that it's not. But I also know that more and more insurance policies are beginning to cover mental health and therapy care. So I do think that if it's something that you've looked into the price of it and you don't believe you can afford it, I would encourage you to, if you have insurance, looking into your insurance and seeing if you can find someone in network who can help you. There are other things available to you like BetterHelp, which I've heard mixed reviews about, but there are more affordable and accessible ways to speak to someone if you need to speak to someone. If you are in a position to participate in therapy and you've been going for a little while and you're making some progress, you might be at a point where I have been lately, which is like, okay, I could see maybe in the near future where I could take it from here. Like I can move on. I'm kind of tired of spending this money on therapy. An hour once a week does start to get to be a lot. It interferes with my schedule, my work schedule, and things like that. So maybe like I got it from here. And one thing that I'm just dedicating myself to in 2022 is that really no matter where I end up on my growth and healing journey, as long as the time and the money are available for me to continue with therapy, I'm going to continue with it. And I think that this is something that I think might be a little bit of a misconception about therapy, is that many of us go because there's a specific trauma that we want to work through. Something happened to us that we just can't move past and we want some help dealing with that. We have conflict in a relationship that matters to us. Things like this that bring us to therapy, and we work through that process, we work through that grief or whatever it is, and then we feel better because that first problem that we had, the original problem that we went to therapy for, is fixed. But one thing that I've really learned is that through the process of dealing with whatever that trauma was that brought you to therapy in the first place, if you have a good therapist, you often begin finding other things beneath the surface. For me, it's discovering things from my childhood, things related to receiving the silent treatment or being rejected by my peers or never feeling good enough, never feeling like I was perfect enough. And these are things that have been buried super deep in me that I don't think about consciously. But as I go through therapy, I realize that a lot of when I'm behaving in a way that I'm not proud of, when I'm engaging in behaviors that are self-destructive, that aren't good for me or aren't good for the people around me, it usually has to do with one of these triggers from deep down from my childhood or my young adulthood that I've buried, that I'm not really paying any attention to. And so for me, going into 2022, I'm recognizing that maybe the things that originally brought me to therapy are better now, and I have to be less worried about those things. But I'm going to continue through the constant work of self-growth, shadow work, which is working on the shadow self that's kind of behind the mask, the facade that we put on in our day-to-day. And I think that's going to be really important. And I would encourage you to do the same no matter where you are in your therapy journey. If therapy is accessible and affordable and you are able to find time to go, keep it up as long as you can, because there's no downside to exploring what's going on the inside. Number 2 is probably the most important one to me right now, and that is no one gets a seat at my table unless they are doing as much work on themselves as I am. I made a TikTok about this morning and it blew up really fast, and it resonated with people because I mentioned 3 things about our table. The first one is that we're going to take a look at the people who are currently sitting at our table, the people who we have put in our inner circle, and we're going to ask ourselves, do these people belong here? Are these people bringing love and respect to the table? Are these people making me feel valued? Are these people contributing something to me and I'm contributing to them and we have intimacy together? If not, they might not belong at the table. And especially if they're being abusive or they're being demanding or whatever it may be. If they're bringing more problems into our lives than they're bringing value, it's time to decide whether or not they really belong at the table. Number 2 is that in 2020, we are not going to be begging anyone or convincing anyone that they should want to have a seat at our table. And I want you to hear this again. We are not going to be in the business of convincing anyone that they should want a seat at our table. Your table is sacred and it has value, and that value can be seen by the entire world. There are people who will recognize that value and there are people who will not. And the people who don't recognize that value, we're letting them go. In 2020, we're not chasing these people down. We're not going to try to sell them on why they should want a seat at this table. Let them go. Number 3, and this is how I began this point, is that we are not having people at our table in 2022 who are not doing the same work on themselves as we are. And this is going to be really important to me because I have found throughout my adulthood, I tend to invite people into my table who are broken, who need help, who need guidance, and I love that. And it sounds really altruistic, but at the end of the day, a lot of it is kind of selfish. It is self-serving for me to be the hero and to help people and all of these things. But what I find is that sometimes those people kind of rely on me to be helping them through whatever they're going through. And that's okay, that's natural, but I become a crutch to those people and they stop really pursuing their own self-growth, looking into themselves and doing the work, doing the reading and the reflection and the journaling and the therapy if they can, and all of the things that would lead to them being a healthier, more whole person. And since they're not doing that, I find myself being on this journey of personal growth amongst people who are not doing that same work. And I'm gonna need people around me who are working hard on themselves too, who understand what that journey is like, who understand what it's like to look at the ugly parts of you and put them out there and say, here they are. I don't know if I can fix all of these, but I'm gonna try. And until someone has really done the work of prying off their own mask and really looking at themselves in the mirror, they don't have any business being a part of your journey of pulling your own mask off. Number 3, boundaries. I am taking boundaries into 2022, and honestly, boundaries related to me receiving boundaries from other people, as well as me putting up boundaries with others. I've come to the realization this year that I can be enormously challenging to put boundaries up with because I have what's called anxious attachment style. So I kind of believe that relationships are inherently fragile and that they are broken if I am imperfect, and they cannot withstand any kind of conflict or trouble or anything like that. Which means that if someone is to say to me, hey Amber, we're in the middle of this argument, it's not going well, I need some time to step back and reflect and cool off, and I'll come back later and we can talk about this with level heads. I take this as rejection instead of as a boundary, and I blow up. It's very hard to get me to settle down after that point. And as I've done reflection on this, I realize a lot of that is from my childhood. It's from growing up in environments where boundaries weren't necessarily allowed or respected. And it sounds like I'm putting down my family in that regard, and I'm not. In my family, there was a very well-meaning intent, which was, we're gonna talk this out right now. We're gonna fix this right now. And I come from a long line of people in my family who have these kind of anxious attachments, who feel like relationships are only safe and intact if we are actively engaged together and working on it. And that was just what was modeled for me from really young as a kid. And so because of that, it can be really hard to set a healthy boundary with me and have me respect it with a cool head, instead of panicking, thinking that this friendship is over, this relationship is over, this business partnership is over. I spiral, and I've got to work on that. And so for me, that work is dealing with my anxious attachment style, learning more of a sense of self-worth and self-confidence, and learning to trust myself and others a little bit more, to understand that relationships are not as fragile as you might think. And in addition to that, I have to work on setting my own boundaries. I love to preach about boundaries, and I'm actually one of the worst about putting them in place. I'm a person who will try to set a boundary, and then if the other person pushes back at all, especially if it's has anything to do with making me feel guilty or bad for them, I will just bring that boundary right down. I'm just like, okay, never mind. I'm sorry. This is what I thought I needed, but maybe it's not. And I just back off of it. And I heard a quote from one of my friends on TikTok and Instagram who said, boundaries are the distance at which I can love myself and you. And that's what I'm trying to own in 2022, is recognizing that boundaries are actually more about keeping you in right relationship with other people, so that neither person in that relationship, again, whether it's a marriage or a friendship, family or business, both people are able to be in that relationship without over-sacrificing what they need or what they want. And in 2022, my plan is going to be becoming a boundaries ninja, just learning how to accept, receive boundaries, and also to put boundaries out there and hold firm to them. Number 4, I am accepting who I am as a mom and appreciating that that is okay. I've talked about this a lot on all my social media. And I've tried really hard to wear it with pride as I am not Mother Goose. I am not yummy gummy mommy. I am fun mom. I'm roller skating mom, but I'm not Pinterest mom and all this other stuff. And I've tried really hard to be an example of that for others, to show that like you don't have to be Mother Goose in order to be a good mom. But I do think that I've always still held in my head this standard that says that Mother Goose mom is the best kind of mom to be. And by Mother Goose, I mean the stay-at-home moms who love being mothers, who love cuddling with their babies and reading books with their older kids and doing arts and crafts, and like they live for these activities with their children. And I still do. I wish I could be that kind of mom. I wanted to be that kind of mom. In fact, I had aspirations when I became pregnant of quitting my job, being a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling my children, and like, you know, jarring my own vegetables and making my own baby food and all this stuff. And it turned out that I just am not that kind of mom. And I've spent all these years, on the one hand, on social media being very vocal about how it's okay to be this kind of mom, but on the other hand, silently beating myself up about it. Like, what's wrong with me that I don't want to be Mother Goose? As my kids get older and they're getting a little bit more independent, I am finally feeling myself stepping into the fullness of me as a mom. I am so good with them. Well, I'm getting better with them at this age. I'm learning as they get older, despite the fact that yes, bigger kids, bigger problems, I get that. But I'm learning that I am more natural at them at these older ages than I was when they were smaller. And I just really think that I wish I could go back to myself as a brand new mom, knowing what I know now, and really reassure that new mom version of me that you're okay. It's all right to not be Mother Goose. And I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Past Amber, your kids turn out just fine. That little baby you're holding right now and you're worried to death that you're not, like, you don't love breastfeeding, I get it. You don't love snuggles. You're so ready to get this kid to bed at the end of the day. That kid's gonna turn out just fine. And I really want to embrace that. Not just be like, well, I'm not Mother Goose, this is what I am. Instead, to be like, I'm a damn good mom. Nope, I'm not Pinterest mom. Nope, I'm not Mother Goose. I am Amazon Prime mom, and I'm okay with that. I am fun mom. I am that. I said this on TikTok the other day. Anytime that I'm out and I'm like sort of envying other moms who are like Pinterest moms and they're doing like homemade sensory bins with their kids or whatever, I'm wishing that I was more like them. I know for a fact that there are times when I am out hitting it hard at the playground with my kids, or I'm out at the roller skating rink with them, skating and having a blast with them. There are moms on the sidelines watching me, wishing that they were as good of a mom as I am. So all of us are just momming in our best way possible. And I think in 2022, it's time for us to accept that fact, that we are good moms no matter how we're doing it. The last one is gonna feel like off from the rest of them, but I think it's really important. I am prioritizing happiness over pleasure. And I think this is one that's very useful as we enter 2022 and we're thinking about our New Year's resolutions or our priorities for the year. I'm reading a book right now which talks about this concept of pleasure versus happiness, and how often we confuse pleasure for happiness and we chase down pleasure, not realizing that pleasure often does not lead to lifelong happiness. So pleasure is something that brings a very intense spark of joy in the moment, and then it's fleeting. It goes away once that moment has passed. Whereas happiness is more of a lifelong thing. So like just a very, very practical example of this is having an affair, right? That would bring pleasure in the moment, but in the long run, it brings no happiness because you've betrayed your spouse. You have to try to cover it up. You have to lie. You have to be deceptive and all of these things, right? That pleasure does not bring happiness. It's like, for the most, like, you know what I mean? It's not supposed to. That's what I'm trying to say. A less scandalous example of that is wanting to go eat an entire pint of ice cream in one sitting. It would bring you pleasure right now. But if you have a goal of trying to get healthy and fit, tomorrow morning when you wake up and you're feeling bloated and like your gut feels all bad, it doesn't make you happy. And that is something that I really am going to be focusing on in 2022. I went through an exercise the other day and I kind of listed out what are the things that bring me pleasure and what are the things that bring me happiness. And I'm going to be focusing on this list of happiness and the things that bring me pleasure. Some of those things are good things, like eating ice cream. I love ice cream. I'm going to let myself enjoy those things, but these things must be enjoyed in moderation and never to the point where they interfere with my happiness. And this is still a like semi-fledged thought in my mind. I'm still working on it. So I'm hoping to make some more YouTube videos about this as I learn and as I grow. But it's just something to think about, especially as you think about your 2022 resolutions. Like, are the things that you're pursuing, that you're spending active time on, are they for pleasure or are they for happiness? And let's pursue the things in 22 that bring us happiness. So guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope this was useful. I feel like this was more like a therapy session for me, just like get a whole bunch of stuff out. But I hope there was some useful stuff there for you. Let me know in the comments if there was. I'd love to hear things that you're bringing with you into 2022. It's always helpful to read those in the comment sections. With that, love you, mean it always, mwah! And I'll see you in the next one.